plane carrying 177 Venezuelan migrants who had been held in Guantanamo Bay following their deportation from the United States arrived in Venezuela on Thursday. This repatriation marks a significant moment in the controversial migration policies initiated under former President Donald Trump's administration. The transfer nearly emptied the naval base of migrants sent there after Trump took office, as legal and human rights concerns mounted over the legality of detaining asylum seekers in a military facility with a dark history. Background of the deportations: the deported migrants were initially flown to Honduras for a scheduled transfer to Venezuela, according to the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. These migrants were among hundreds who had been sent to Guantanamo Bay as part of a broader aggressive strategy to curb migration from Latin America, particularly from countries experiencing severe economic and political crises, like Venezuela. However, after legal scrutiny and humanitarian objections, many of these migrants were eventually flown elsewhere, leading to this latest repatriation effort. Guantanamo Bay, a U.S. military base in Cuba, has long been synonymous with the detention of terrorism suspects in the post-9/11 era. The decision to house migrants there raised immediate concerns among human rights groups, legal experts, and international organizations. The facility, originally designed to detain high-risk individuals linked to terrorist activities, had never before been used as a holding center for undocumented migrants, allegations of criminal ties, and Venezuela's response. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, has stated that some of the Venezuelan migrants sent to Guantanamo Bay had links to the Tren de Aragua gang, a powerful criminal network that originated in Venezuela's prison system. DHS claimed that the gang has been expanding its operations across South America and posed a serious security threat. However, the Venezuelan government has strongly refuted these claims. In a statement, Venezuelan authorities asserted that the deported migrants were unjustly taken to the Guantanamo naval base and should never have been detained under such conditions. President Nicolas Maduro addressed the return of the migrants, declaring, "These individuals are not criminals. They are not bad people. They emigrated as a result of the unjust sanctions imposed on Venezuela. We welcome them back as a productive force, with a loving embrace." Maduro's comments reflect Venezuela's long-standing opposition to U.S. sanctions, which have significantly impacted the country's economy and driven millions of people to seek better opportunities abroad. Legal and humanitarian concerns. The use of Guantanamo Bay for detaining migrants sparked widespread outrage among human rights organizations, legal experts, and advocacy groups. Many questioned the legality of sending asylum seekers and undocumented migrants to a facility notorious for human rights violations. Senior officials from the Trump administration defended the move, arguing that Guantanamo Bay was reserved for the worst of the worst. However, recent court filings revealed that not all those sent to the facility were considered high risk or dangerous. A DHS spokesperson provided details on the deportees, stating that 126 individuals had criminal charges or convictions, including 80 who were allegedly affiliated with the Tren de Aragua gang. However, 51 individuals had no known criminal record, raising questions about why they were subjected to detention in such a high-security facility. Legal experts argue that the detention of these individuals at Guantanamo Bay could constitute a violation of international human rights laws, including the United Nations guidelines on the treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. Some legal scholars have even suggested that detaining migrants at a military facility without due process could be challenged in U.S. courts. Trump's migration crackdown and its implications. Trump's immigration policies, particularly his aggressive stance on deportations, have had a lasting impact on U.S.-Latin America relations. The former president implemented numerous restrictive measures, including the Remain in Mexico policy, which forced asylum seekers to wait outside the U.S. while their cases were processed. His administration also dramatically expanded ICE operations and increased the use of expedited deportations, while Trump argued that these policies were necessary to protect national security and prevent illegal immigration. Critics maintained that they led to significant human rights abuses, including family separations, overcrowded detention centers, and the use of military facilities like Guantanamo Bay for civilian detainees. The Biden administration initially sought to reverse some of these policies, reinstating pathways for legal asylum claims and ending Remain in Mexico. However, under pressure from political opponents and rising border crossings, Biden reintroduced some Trump-era restrictions, including new barriers for asylum seekers and stricter deportation measures. Lawsuit against the Trump administration in a new legal challenge. A group of Venezuelan migrants who were previously shielded from deportation under Temporary Protected Status, TPS, have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. The lawsuit challenges the decision to revoke TPS protections, arguing that it unlawfully endangered individuals who had legally resided in the U.S. under humanitarian relief programs. Earlier this month, the DHS announced the termination of TPS for certain groups of migrants, leaving thousands at risk of deportation. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem decided not to grant an extension for Venezuelans, effectively reversing a decision made under Biden's administration. This policy shift has left approximately 600,000 Venezuelan migrants uncertain about their future in the United States. Currently, protections for around 350,000 Venezuelans are set to expire in April, making them vulnerable to deportation. An additional 250,000 Venezuelans are expected to lose their TPS status by September, further exacerbating the humanitarian crisis faced by the Venezuelan diaspora. Reactions from advocacy groups and international organizations. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, have condemned the detention and deportation of Venezuelan migrants, calling it a violation of international law. The use of Guantanamo Bay for detaining migrants is not only legally questionable, but morally reprehensible, said a spokesperson from Amnesty International. Many of these individuals fled Venezuela due to economic collapse and political persecution. Instead of being treated as criminals, they should have been given the opportunity to seek asylum. The United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, has also expressed concerns about the mass deportations and the conditions under which Venezuelan migrants were held. The agency has urged the U.S. government to ensure that all deportations adhere to international human rights standards and that vulnerable migrants are not returned to situations where they could face persecution or violence. The future of Venezuelan migrants in the USA's. The Biden administration faces continued pressure to address immigration challenges. The fate of Venezuelan migrants in the U.S. remains uncertain. While some policymakers advocate for a more humane approach, others push for stricter enforcement to curb illegal migration. With upcoming elections on the horizon, immigration policy is expected to be a key issue in the political debate. Trump, who is seeking re-election, has doubled down on his tough stance on immigration, pledging to reinstate and expand many of his previous policies if he returns to office. Meanwhile, advocacy groups and legal teams continue to fight for the rights of migrants through the courts, hoping to challenge deportation orders and push for more comprehensive immigration reforms. Conclusion: the return of 177 Venezuelan migrants from Guantanamo Bay to Venezuela is a stark reminder of the complexities and controversies surrounding U.S. immigration policy. While the Trump administration defended its decision as a necessary security measure, legal and humanitarian concerns have cast doubt on the justification for such actions. With the future of Venezuelan migrants still uncertain, the broader debate over immigration enforcement, asylum rights, and international human rights protections is far from over.